All right. I'm so glad I get to sit down with Miss Dawn Mason. If you guys don't know Dawn, and I'm sure most of you do, but Dawn Mason is an elder of distinction in our community. She has been one of the main advisors, one of the first advisors for Africatown Community Land Trust. You were in politics. You've been doing it at First Place, just all over the place. Miss Dawn Mason, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Diana.
Yes.
Class of 2000 Bulldogs.
You know it. You know it.
Yes. What about you?
Yes, I'm well. I'm well. Adjusting like everyone, but we wanted to hear from you. I know you always have some positive messages for the community, and folks need to hear that during this time. So I wanted to sit down with you and just give you an opportunity to let folks know how you're doing and how you see this adjustment hitting our community.
Well, I'm doing well. I am self quarantined for over 4 weeks now, well over a month.
Nice.
And as is my family, I have what we call our social circle, which is my family, and we're all self quarantined. My children who live alone are quarantined so they can come over and see me. Mm-hmm. And we take this very seriously. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that our community is taking this very seriously and being very smart. We all have masks. We do not leave our house without the mask. We take our temperatures every day. And so we're safe. This is something that has been kind of bittersweet for our family, Triana. As you know, our patriarch, Deacon Joe Mason, died on January 5th, and we had his celebration on January 18th, just a few days before the first person died. And I have to say something that may sound a little bit different for people, but when you're a believer and you have faith, and you know that the divine creator makes no mistakes. By taking Deacon Mason, when Deacon Mason left, it meant we had a chance to have family and friends in the hot. When he was in hospice, to come and visit him. He was in the hospital with the best of medical care up in Swedish. We had a wonderful celebration of life for him. We packed Mount Zion Church. That's the last time the church has been packed. The last time that we would have that largest celebration of life that we may have in a long time. For that, I can only be grateful. My family is grateful. Why would we be mourning and gnashing our teeth when there's people who cannot see their family as they're leaving? They can't bring community together to celebrate their life. So all for that, I'm so thankful to the divine creator that the last song sang at his service, and he sang it was, he's an on-time God. And he came on time, and he took Deacon Mason at the right time.
Oh, well, that's such a great personal perspective, and you're so right. I mean, we know a lot of people are making adjustments right now in terms of large gatherings. I mean, funerals, weddings. I mean, the birth of a newborn. You know, you can't even have your family in the room anymore. So there's a lot of adjustments being made all around. I know that. Yeah. Absolutely. And I also know too, one of the beautiful adjustments you're making is being a teacher again with your grandson. Yes. I got to hear some good amount about that. And I know with your background at First Place, you're probably just giving him all of the learning that he needs. How is that going?
It's going very well. I have a kindergartner, my grandson who lives with me, and I'm homeschooling him. And his advancement has been 6 months and 4 weeks. Wow. So this is a blessing that the schools have closed. We're on links. I've linked in with the African American homeschoolers links. I've linked in with education.com and all these wonderful ABC Mouse. The teacher does come on with him once a day for an hour. Now, the families are only getting that 1 hour or can't figure out how to link in or just don't, or they have 3 or 4 children and they have to link in to 3 and 4 different places. This is not working well. For everyone. And we need to make sure we do something about it. So Africatown did have an education meeting, and we had on that meeting was Keisha and Kirk and Anita from the Seattle School District up there, and administration, myself, Bayan from Rainier Valley Leadership Academy, Ayana from Summit, so we could work together as educators who have authority to make decisions to make sure that as we go into the new way of learning, we're never going back to the old way of anything. Anyone who's thinking back 2, 3, or 4 months ago is going to lose in this. So we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention. Look at what's going forward. and help create that what's going forward. And having Africa Town that was already had built momentum going forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're so right. And now is the time, Dawn. I think a lot of people in the community are starting to really get that through their heads about, that it's our time. It's our time. One person that I interviewed, she said something that I'm just carrying with me because I think it's so true. And that is going back to the ways of how we built civilizations in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? And it's this concept that, family is raising family, community raises community.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we must be creative. We are in the image of the divine creator. For those who are believers in whatever they believe in the beginning, the divine creator created. And that's the first action word in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And if we're in the image of God, the creator, then we must be creative people, which means we're put here and we can create our future. We can create it. And so what we have created around education is a collaborated community of clear thinking African Americans willing to contribute to the education and the well-being and future of our children, our community. And now now that we have an Africa Town, we must educate our children to build that town, to build that jurisdiction, to be leaders in that jurisdiction, to get elected in the office, to be the teachers, to be the administrators, to be the corporate leaders of the corporations that are in our community. So we have nonprofit corporations. Those are corporations, and we must learn to be stewards of those corporations, to have good governance. So the reason we say clear thinking, why King reminded me, well, on the other side of clear thinking are the foggy-brained, fuzzy math. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of laugh about that because sometimes we've lost a lot. Yeah. I just posted to First Place today that a year ago today, Facebook showed, not a year ago, 7 years ago, First Place was getting given away to a white organization. And here it is 7 years later, and we are the premier early learning center. We have Amani Village housing for our families. We have an all African American board and board chair and administrators and teachers and finance people. And we just showed that we can do this.
That's right.
So it cost another one. And so the good news today is that 7 years ago today, we were losing something. And today it's secure. There's money, there's enough money now in reserves that we don't have to even worry about this time. We can take care of it even though the school is closed.
Yes.
So that's good.
Well, that says a lot about, the leadership too, right? And getting the right leaders in place to ensure.
We must get the right leaders.
Yes.
Any warm brown or black body will not do. Right. And that's when in colonialism, they will pick any warm black or brown body and say, that's your leader. We now no longer allow others external to ourselves pick our leaders, nor do we allow those among us to be anything but excellent leaders. Mm-hmm. And to report and let us know, what have you accomplished? What are you doing? How does this work? And how are you collaborating with others? Not just the same people, but how are you building community for a future?
Yes. I think that, what you just said is really what the community focus is really about right now. It's about us owning our processes, our institutions. Yes. It's really about the ownership piece. And I know that that's such a huge part of why Africa Town was even birthed, because a lot was going on in the community outside of community members' purview. So I love this idea and the identity that we are building for folks to understand it's time to plug in, right?
It is. And media is so important. So I minored in journalism. Mm-hmm. I'm a writer. I have written for newspapers. I've worked on major newspapers. And so if we don't have our own voice, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I want you to see you and Omari are incredible. I know you have another partner up in there. Who is it?
Yeah, we have Acacia. Yeah.
All of that. And that is so important, because if we aren't speaking our own truth through our own media and saying what, then others will write our truth for us. And it's always wrong.
Yeah.
It always sees us as the lesser. Mm-hmm. Like right now they're saying, oh, African Americans are dying. We have always died at large numbers. And so then we don't like it, but we're dying because they say we have the diseases that lessen our immune system, right? Well, if that's the reason, why are white people dying? I really want to know that. If the reason is because this virus really attacks and is really hard on people with compromised immune systems, why are white people dying? They need to study white people. We've always died at greater numbers. So to throw that out and say we're dying at greater numbers, that is not new news. The new news is that there's hundreds of thousands of white people dying. Europe, it's white countries. All over, Washington was almost at the top. It's a white state. We're a white state. We aren't a black state. Now that New York is it New York? Well, there's a large number of African Americans in New York, so large numbers of African Americans are going to die. And we're in those jobs where they are the essential services. Just saying that. So they're the ones who are most exposed. But if we are the essential services, then we are important to this country. Yeah. The others are non-essential. So if blacks and browns, the global majority are in essential services, you're a journalist. Look at that, like those two words. We're the essential. The others are non-essential, which means that we have always been essential. That's why they went to Africa and got us to build this country. And so therefore, here as we're shifting the globe, we're still essential.
I love that. I love the perspective of that. And I think it's so true. Yeah, it's so true. And you're right about the disparity in the numbers. I mean, I think that a lot of, people, we've been discussing it on the Morning Update show. A lot of people have been talking about the disparity of the numbers, but I think you are so right. When we go back to the basics, a lot of it is because that's exactly right. I mean, we know that Black people have suffered, more things, the trauma, the stress, all of that anxiety, financial instability,
asthma, diabetes, kidney, heart failure.
Just all the things.
All of that.
Yeah.
But we're still here.
Exactly. And that's really where the resilience comes in, right? I mean, I think one of the best things, and you said it earlier, is that we don't go back to the ways of the old. We really take this opportunity to shape something new for our future. And what is it that you feel in terms of education, before we get out of here, in terms of education? This is a new platform. I want to hear from you. What does it look like moving forward? Is this more small?
Moving forward, we will have to get parents used to now taking responsibility for the education of their children and being managers. And still, we will have public schools. They'll still be responsible for providing. So if you think of education as a project and the parent is the project manager, then teachers are merely subcontractors. Mm-hmm. But we have to know what we want our children to look like at the end of this project. If we want them in college, then every decision that's made with that child is toward that end. Mm-hmm. So we must be very clear, like say clear thinking. We are the project managers. So rather than being PTA members and that kind of stuff, we are now managers of the project. The project are our children's education and well-being, and their executive function. We're going to start using words like that. Because our children have to have good executive function to manage and multitask with all these links and all these things and all these new programs and all this technology, right? So we have to have different language. We have to think differently. We have to, and then we say, well, this might be offended. There's no African-American children being expelled from school for the first time that no African-American children were expelled from school. That was a major issue for us.
Yeah.
We fixed that one. They get expelled from the school you're not in. Right. Isn't that right?
Right.
They aren't being demeaned by teachers who don't like them. Right? Right. But it means parents have to say, this is my opportunity. Like I say, my grandson has advanced a half a year in 4 weeks. We're way ahead of his class. Mm-hmm. He's ahead.
Wow.
So this is good. So it's an opportunity. But we have to ask parents to see the education of their children are now in their hands. Yeah. And the schools are there to provide us with what they need. The Constitution of the state says that it's the paramount duty of the legislature to provide a basic education to all children, no matter whether they're poor, they're Black, you know, immigrant or anything. So there's two words. One is that basic. So basic is like having that car with no 22s and, you know, there's no GPS system, no power brakes. It's basic.
Yes.
It's car. It'll get you there.
Mm-hmm.
If you want anything better than that, you have to go out and add that. You have to add those, do those extracurricular type things. Make sure if your child needs a tutor, get a tutor. If they need some extra help, a mentor, get that for them. We have to build this more than basic around them. Then the other is provide. And so the law says the state must provide, but there's no law saying that the parent and child must accept what is put there. They just have to provide it. There's no law says that you have to accept that education. So we want to be real clear about what we're reading and what we hear. Basic and provide. So we want to accept an education and then build on it so that we have that sharp car and it's shined up and got detailed and got those rims on there and, you know, them horns go. We take better care of our cars than our children. You go buy someone's car, it's going to start blowing, the horns go off, and they'll let anybody around their children.
Right. See?
Nothing goes off. You don't even know who's around the children. You go next to the car, and it gets the beeping and lights are flashing. Well, we want our children, if anything, any teacher, any gang drug dealer, anybody, anyone saying something stupid or acting stupid, we don't want them around our children.
There we go.
Nor do we want to be that way around anybody's child.
Yeah. Well, you said it best, Dawn. Thank you again for giving us.
Well, thank you. This is always fun speaking with you. I wish Africa Town the best. I know y'all are doing great things. My commitment is good, always. Anything you need, anything you want to use my name, I know it'll always be for good. Just go and say, Dawn said it. Sometimes that makes me kind of so like, oh goodness, you know, and that's in a good way. I have a good name. A good name, I want to tell everyone listening, a good name is worth more than gold. People can dig to the pits of hell. You'll never find anything bad on Dawn Mason, because if you do, then I can't be that voice. I can't be that strong. And so we must learn, if we're going to be leaders, we must be ethical, we must be principled, we must lead with character. And for those in my age group and even under, learn to pass the baton. So I can pass the baton to Triana, sorry, because in order to do that, my hand has to be going down, but Triana, your hand has to be going up to grab it.
That's
and
right.
So you're being a great journalist, you're grabbing it out there, and thank you for what you do.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Dawn. Always a pleasure. Always.
Bye-bye.